Growing up in a quiet Texas town, surrounded by endless stretches of open land and skies so clear you could see the universe, my childhood was a blend of routine and fleeting moments that unknowingly pushed me toward my future. Most afternoons, I roamed the dusty trails near our family's modest ranch, my mind turning the ordinary into epic adventures. My father, a no-nonsense Air Force veteran, often stumbled upon me perched on the rusted skeleton of an old tractor, lost in thoughts of distant lands and heroic deeds. With a knowing smirk, he'd touzle my hair and remind me that real bravery wasn't the kind you found in fairy tales. It was quieter, heavier, and rarely glamorous. When I turned 12, a tragedy shattered our world. A fire tore through our barn, consuming not just our livestock but also my father's treasured Air Force memorabilia. As I watched him sift through the charred remains, his face carved with silent grief, I understood for the first time what loss truly looked like. The invincible man I had always known suddenly seemed fragile. That moment planted a seed in me, a quiet but unshakable resolve to build something indestructible, a legacy that fire, time, or fate couldn't erase. My teenage years brought lessons I never expected to learn so soon. When my mother fell ill, I was thrust into responsibilities most kids my age couldn't even imagine. With my younger siblings depending on me, I had no choice but to take the reins of the household. It wasn't a heroic act. It was survival, plain and simple. While other kids were chasing dreams that would likely fade, I was learning patience, endurance, and the weight of duty. Then came the moment that set my path in stone. During a local Veterans Day parade, I met Captain Patrick Reynolds, a battle-hardened pilot whose words carried the weight of experience. He spoke of loyalty, sacrifice, and the unbreakable bonds forged in service. His stories didn't just inspire me, they changed me. That night, I made a decision. I would follow in his footsteps, even if the road ahead remained unclear. When it finally came time to enlist, I hesitated, not out of fear, but because I needed to be sure. My father's quiet pride and my mother's unwavering belief in me were what ultimately pushed me forward. They had given me a foundation too strong to ignore, and I knew the Air Force was the only place where I could truly honor them. Basic training was like stepping into another universe. The discipline, the exhaustion, the relentless demands, it pushed me in ways I never anticipated. But amidst the struggle, I found something unexpected, a brotherhood. The people around me weren't just fellow recruits, they became family. And among them was Ryan Delgado, a man who would become more than just a teammate. He was my brother in every way that mattered. Today, my name is Ethan Carter, and I am a 26-year-old technical sergeant in the United States Air Force, currently stationed in Afghanistan. My role shifts between serving as a sniper and a spotter, working in close coordination with my trusted partner, Staff Sergeant Ryan Delgado. My decision to join the Air Force wasn't a spur-of-the-moment choice. It was something written into my blood. My father dedicated over 2 decades to the military before transitioning to civilian life in Central Texas. My grandparents, both Air Force veterans, had also retired in the same area. Even my great-grandfather had left his mark, serving in the Army Air Corps during World War II. This long-standing legacy shaped me into the man I am today. I met my wife, Lauren, while attending school in Mississippi. Her parents, Daniel and Rebecca, were both retired Air Force members who had recently moved to Central Florida. We were lucky enough to be stationed at Patrick Air Force Base near Melbourne, allowing her parents to help when our son, Jacob, was born 3 years ago. Wanting to secure a future for my family, I started a small cleaning business that initially serviced our church but soon expanded. Over time, I landed contracts for base housing inspections, a strip mall, and even a 3-story office building. The business grew, employing about a dozen people, many of whom had military ties. Lauren handled the scheduling and finances, while I took charge of operations and sales. For the majority of my Air Force career, I worked as an avionics systems technician. But when an opportunity arose for sniper training, I stepped forward. My expert marksman scores qualified me, and the offer of additional hazardous duty pay made it even more appealing. Lauren, for once, actually supported the decision, though whether that was out of genuine encouragement or simple indifference, I never knew for sure. Training alongside Marine and Army snipers in Georgia, I met Ryan, another Air Force airman. Together, we formed a sniper team that stood out, finishing at the top of our class. Ryan had been stationed at McGuire Air Force Base in New Jersey before transferring to Patrick AFB, right before our deployment to Afghanistan. 8 months in, we had already completed countless missions together. I kept in touch with Lauren and Jacob as often as I could, usually through phone calls and Skype. But no matter how many times we spoke, the distance never got any easier. Then came the call that changed everything. During a Skype session with Lauren, something caught my eye, a shadow moving in the background. Thinking it was Jacob, I asked about it. But she quickly brushed it off, saying he was staying with her parents for the week. She casually suggested it might have been someone from the cleaning crew stopping by. It was broad daylight in Florida, so I had no reason to question her. The next day, my phone rang. It was Mark Sullivan, a friend who occasionally helped with my business. His voice was tight, uneasy. "Ethan," he said hesitantly, "I hate to be the one to tell you this, but Lauren's cheating on you." His words slammed into me like a bullet. My stomach twisted as I forced out a response. "You're joking, right?" "I wish I was," Mark admitted, his voice heavy with regret. "Yesterday, I stopped by your place to check on Lauren, see if she needed anything. Her car was there, but when I knocked, no one answered. The door was unlocked, so I stepped inside." He hesitated. "That's when I saw her in the kitchen, with Tyler Vaughn." He didn't need to elaborate. The weight of his words hit me harder than any battlefield encounter ever had. My grip tightened around the phone. "Mark," I managed, my voice barely steady. "Are you absolutely sure?" "I'm sure, Ethan." "I'm so sorry, man," Mark said, his voice thick with sympathy. "But listen, you need to stay sharp. If there's more to this, you'll want solid proof. And one more thing, make sure Jacob's actually with her parents." I swallowed the lump in my throat. My mind raced, searching for a next step. "There's a law office in that building we clean a Harper and Green, right? Maybe I should start there." "Good call," Mark agreed. "I've got your back. But for now, keep this between us and the lawyer." "Thanks, Mark. I appreciate it." After hanging up, I sat frozen, my thoughts a whirlwind of disbelief and anger. 6 years of marriage gone like this? Had the distance done this to her? Or had she been this way all along, and I was just too blind to see it? The betrayal felt like a slow, twisting knife, and the more I tried to make sense of it, the worse it got. Needing direction, I walked into the base's headquarters and asked to speak with someone who could help. A desk sergeant led me to an office where I was greeted by Colonel Monroe. His handshake was firm, his gaze steady. "Take your time, Sergeant Carter," he said, motioning for me to sit. "Tell me what's going on." I laid it all out, the call from Mark, the gut-wrenching betrayal, and my uncertainty about what to do next. By the time I finished, my hands were shaking, and I fought to keep my voice steady. The colonel listened without interruption, occasionally jotting down notes. When I finally fell silent, he leaned back in his chair, giving me a moment to collect myself. Then, he picked up his phone. "Vic, it's Charlie. I've got a situation here. Can you come to my office?" "No, not that." "Yes, the other matter. And while you're at it, see if you can locate USAF Staff Sergeant Ryan Delgado." "Thanks." He hung up and turned back to me. "Help is on the way. Just sit tight." "You're not alone in this, Ethan." I shifted in my seat, uneasy. "I don't want to take up your time. I can wait outside." "Nonsense," he said with authority. "I'm here for situations like this. What you're feeling right now, it's crushing, I know. But I promise you, it gets better. It takes time, but you will make it through." He leaned forward, his expression softened but serious. 10 years ago, I went through something similar. It almost broke me. For 5 years, I couldn't see a way forward. At my lowest point, I considered giving up entirely. But someone pulled me back, and that kindness saved me. Now, I make sure to do the same for others. You're not alone, Ethan. We'll get you through this. His words landed like a heavy weight, steadying me in a way I hadn't expected. If he had survived something like this, maybe I could too. But the thought of Lauren, of what she had done, made my blood run cold. She'd never be near Jacob again. That much was certain. Her betrayal wasn't just about me, it was an attack on our family. If she had done this once, who was to say it hadn't happened before? Or that it wouldn't happen again? The more I thought about it, the more I realized I needed answers. But part of me feared what I'd uncover. If this had been going on for years, I didn't know if I could handle the truth. My thoughts shifted to her parents. Did they know? I doubted it. They had always treated me like family, but if I involved them, I'd have to tread carefully. A soft knock at the door yanked me from my spiraling thoughts. Father Anthony Russo entered, followed by Ryan. Ryan didn't hesitate. He crossed the room in 3 strides, dropped to one knee beside my chair, and wrapped me in a firm hug. "I heard what happened," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "Buddy, you have to hang on. We need you. And more importantly, Jacob needs you. You can't let her take him. Stay strong for him." I shook my head, words failing me. "Dig deep, Ethan," Ryan urged. "You have to push through this. I'll help, and so will Father Vic. You're not alone." I took a breath and finally spoke. "Ryan, my friend Mark is keeping tabs back home. He already caught Lauren in the act, found her with some guy in our kitchen, and he thinks that might just be the start of it." My voice wavered, but I pushed through. "He's also reaching out to a lawyer to get things moving." Ryan nodded, his jaw tight. "Good. You need to cover every angle." I exhaled sharply. Sorry for losing it back there. Talking to the colonel hit me harder than I expected. "Let's head back to the tent," Ryan suggested. "Maybe you can get some sleep. We probably have a mission coming up," I muttered. "Mark'd worry about that," the colonel cut in. "I'll adjust the rotation or arrange emergency leave for you if needed." "Who's Mark?" he asked, switching gears. "Mark Sullivan," I explained. "A close friend. He's contacting Harper and Green, a law firm near Indian Harbor Beach. My cleaning company handles their office cleaning." The colonel gave me an intrigued look. "You own a cleaning business?" I nodded. "Yeah. My wife and I run it together, though on paper, I'm the sole owner. She handles scheduling and bookkeeping, while I focus on sales and operations." "Is it properly registered?" he asked. "Absolutely," I confirmed. "I worked with the base legal office to get all the paperwork in order. We pay our taxes, and I manage payroll responsibly." The colonel seemed satisfied. "Good. I'll contact Mark to get the lawyer's details and keep an eye on things until your new attorney is fully involved. For now, get some rest. I'll inform your commanding officer that you'll need some time off." I nodded. "Thank you, Colonel. A couple of days to clear my head would help. But after that, I think I'll need a mission. Shooting helps me focus." Ryan smirked. "He's not joking, sir. We're different people after a mission. Major Kelly even says we're his most reliable team, tense during the briefing, but locked in and deadly when it counts." "Are you both snipers?" Father Vic asked. "Yes," Ryan answered. "We switch roles between shooter and spotter. It's never about individual stats, it's about working as a team. Between us, we've got 54 confirmed eliminations and 23 possibles. The CO trusts us because he knows we deliver." Father Vic nodded approvingly. "One spirit, two bodies. You truly are a team." The colonel agreed. When Ryan came in, his first instinct was to check on Ethan. They share the burden and the glory equally. That's why they succeed. "It's rare these days," Father Vic said, "but it's inspiring to witness." The colonel jotted down Mark's number before Ryan and I left his office. While Colonel Monroe and Father Russo continued talking, Ryan helped me back to the tent. The exhaustion hit hard, and after taking a couple of aspirin, I crashed. I didn't just sleep. I shut down completely. When I finally woke, the light filtering through the tent told me it was daytime. Ryan was already watching me, arms crossed. "Feeling better?" "Starving," I muttered, rubbing my face. "Let me hit the latrine, then we'll grab some chow." Ryan smirked. "You might want to check the date first. You've been out since Tuesday night." "It's Thursday now." I blinked. "No way. You even slept longer than after Mission 27 when we were up for 122 hours. You needed it." I exhaled, trying to process it. "Damn. Guess my body had enough." "Not surprising," Ryan said. "With everything going on, you were running on fumes." I was about to ask more when he continued. "By the way, you got a few calls while you were out. The colonel's been busy too, making calls to Florida. He wants to meet us at 0030. That got my attention, but first, I needed food." After cleaning up and changing into a fresh uniform, we headed to the chow hall. My tent mates took full advantage of my long nap, throwing out sleeping beauty jokes. Inside, we ran into Sergeant Hannah Price from the JAG office. "Back among the living, I see," she said, grinning. "Feeling better? You looked rough the other night." "Like a full system reboot," I replied. "I think I needed it." "You're handling things better than most," she noted. "Let me guess, dear John, over Skype?" "Happens a lot. The colonel's great at dealing with these situations. It's why he works late." "Thanks for checking in," I said. "Want to join us for lunch?" She hesitated. "I'd love to, but I think Ryan has things to discuss with you." "How about dinner instead?" 6 o'clock. I'll bring my friend Emily along too. Ryan raised an eyebrow. Why bring a friend? Hannah smirked. So you'll have someone to talk to while I chat with Ethan. She winked. See you tonight, fly boys. As she walked away, I turned to Ryan. Was she flirting? Or am I imagining things? Ryan chuckled. Oh, she was definitely flirting. And now I'm curious about Emily. But first, let's eat. You're running on empty. That was an understatement. I demolished 2 slices of meatloaf, 3 portions of roast beef, a double helping of mashed potatoes with gravy, 4 bowls of vegetables, 2 slices of apple pie, and a cup of ice cream. While I ate, Ryan updated me. Mark called twice. The lawyer called once too. The colonel spoke with him directly. I swallowed a mouthful of food. Anything new? Ryan's expression darkened. Mark sent more photos. This time, Lauren was with a captain we cleaned for. And another guy who sometimes does contract work for us. I forced myself to stay calm. At least it strengthens my case for custody, I muttered. Still makes me sick. Ryan nodded but didn't push the topic. After eating, we hit the gym for a quick workout before heading back to the tent for a nap. I wanted to be well rested for dinner and the late-night meeting. At 0030, I showered, dressed, and we made our way back to the chow hall. Sergeant Price was already there, sitting with a young Marine Corporal Emily Foster. Introductions were quick, and Ryan immediately hit it off with Emily. Turns out, they were both from upstate New York, raised only about 50 miles apart. Meanwhile, Hannah and I talked about life, family, and our goals. She was from near Lexington, Kentucky, while I had grown up outside of Austin, Texas. I shared stories about Lauren, Jacob, and our life before deployment, but kept my current problems to myself. Before I knew it, 3 hours had passed. We said goodnight, agreeing to meet again for meals, or maybe even a movie. After that, Ryan and I headed to the communications tent so I could Skype Lauren. It was mid-morning back home, so she should have been working on payroll. She answered quickly, looking put together, except for a patch of messy hair at the back of her head. We chatted, her voice as sweet as ever, telling me how much she missed me. Ryan and I kept a careful eye on the background, looking for anything suspicious. Near the end of the call, Ryan nudged me. Shadow, he whispered. I frowned. What was that? Lauren's expression didn't waver. What was what? I thought I saw something behind you, I said. Maybe just a reflection from outside. Her response was smooth. Too smooth. It's probably nothing, she assured me. I just miss you so much, Ethan. I miss your arms around me. As she spoke, the shadow moved again. It wasn't just a trick of the light. Ryan and I exchanged a glance. Lauren kept talking, pouring out her so-called love for me. But behind her, the shadow exaggerated her words, as if mocking her. Then, just before the line cut off, I heard it. Laughter. Not just hers, his. Ryan and I stared at the screen. Then we burst into laughter, not out of humor, but disbelief. She really thought I was this stupid. That was it. The final straw. She's never seeing Jacob again, I muttered. I called my mom immediately. She picked up on the first ring. Mom, I need you and Dad to go to Florida and get Jacob. Tell Lauren you just want to spend time with him. She's cheating on me. If Jacob stays with the Brooks, she'll try to see him. Once she's served, she might try to take him away. There was a sharp intake of breath. She's what? Of course, we'll go. But why now? I just found out Tuesday, I explained. Mark Sullivan, you remember him and his wife, Jessica? He caught her in the act. Walked in on her with some guy in our kitchen. He even took pictures. The divorce is already in motion. Jacob's with Daniel and Rebecca this week, but Lauren's supposed to get him this weekend. I can't let that happen. I don't blame you, Mom said. We'll leave as soon as we can. I'll call Rebecca and see if we can stay there. Are you coming back or handling this remotely? I don't know yet, I admitted. I have a meeting with my lawyer tonight. He's been through something similar. And Ryan's been a huge help. Is Ryan there now? She asked. Put him on. Ryan leaned in. Hi, Mom, he said with a grin. Hope it's okay I call you that. My mom doesn't have a computer with a camera, so I rarely get to see her. Mom chuckled. Of course, Ryan. You're helping Ethan, and that makes you family. After hearing Ryan's comment, my mom chuckled. Send me your mom's address, and I'll ship her a webcam. That way, you can talk face to face. Ryan shook his head with a small smile. Thanks, but I think she'd be embarrassed. Since Dad passed, I suspect she's seeing someone, but she hasn't told me yet. I should write her and let her know I'd be happy if she's found someone. You absolutely should, Mom encouraged. Sometimes parents forget their kids grow into adults. Now, I'll get your dad moving toward Florida. Ethan, we'll get through this. Thanks, Mom. Love you. Be careful on your trip. Are you flying or driving? We'll decide after talking to Daniel and Rebecca, she said. And don't worry, we won't mention Lauren's cheating, but we might feel them out on their thoughts about infidelity. We'll keep you updated. Love you too, Mom. Bye. After the call, Ryan shook his head. Man, your mom is cool, but I bet she's furious. I sighed. Yeah, she's just holding it together for me. When do you usually call your in-laws? Ryan asked. You probably want to see Jacob. I nodded. Thanks, man. Let me take a minute to pull myself together. Grab us a beer. You got it, he said, leaving. I called the Brooks. Rebecca answered after a few rings. Hey, Ethan, want me to set up Skype so you can talk to Jacob? That'd be great. I haven't talked to him all week. She set up the call, and within seconds, her face appeared on my screen. Hey, Mom, you look fantastic, I said, forcing a smile. I hope Jacob hasn't been too much trouble. Oh, Ethan, don't be silly, she laughed. Jacob's a joy. Honestly, sometimes I wish you had a dozen more just like him. Right on cue, Jacob ran into the room, his arms outstretched as he climbed onto Rebecca's lap. His little face lit up. Hi, Daddy. I miss you so much. When are you coming home? Hearing his voice hit me harder than expected. Hey, buddy, I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. I miss you too. I don't know when I'll be back, but maybe next month. There's a chance I'll get a break. Jacob beamed. That's great. Daddy, I miss you a lot. I miss you too, pal. You've been good for Grandma and Grandpa. I've been really good, Daddy. Right, Grandma? Rebecca smiled and ruffled his hair. Yes, Jacob. You've been wonderful. We're proud of you. Then she turned her attention back to me. How about you, Ethan? Everything okay over there? You look tired. Yeah, Mom, everything's fine. I lied. Just busy. I might not be able to call for a little while. So make sure Jacob keeps being a good boy and helps Mommy, okay? Jacob nodded eagerly. Okay, Daddy. I'll help Mommy. Then his gaze drifted toward the door. Can I go play now? I forced a smile. Of course, buddy. I love you. I love you too, Daddy. Come home soon. As he ran off, I felt tears sliding down my cheeks. Rebecca noticed, but said nothing, just gently helping Jacob off her lap. I whispered a silent prayer. Please, God, protect my boy. Keep him safe from her manipulation. Just let her stay away. When I opened my eyes, Rebecca was watching me closely, her expression serious. Ethan, something's going on. I can see it on your face. Are you in trouble? About to do something dangerous? I hesitated. Rebecca had always been sharp. I swear, Rebecca, I can't talk about it yet. But changes are coming, and you'll know soon enough. I forced a lighter tone. Oh, by the way, I spoke to Mom earlier. She and Dad are planning a surprise visit to see you and the kids. They want to take Jacob to Disney World. You should go too. Her eyebrows shot up in suspicion. Ethan, I know you. What aren't you telling me? I sighed. Listen, I promise I'll explain everything when I can. Maybe next week or the week after. Just trust me. She crossed her arms. Well, I might just dig around a little. Maybe one of my friends knows what you're up to. My stomach tightened. Rebecca, please don't. This has to stay under wraps, especially from Lauren. I mean it. She can't know anything. Honestly, I wish you didn't even know this much. She studied me for a long moment, then reluctantly nodded. Fine, but I want answers soon. Got it. Yes, ma'am, I said with a smirk, trying to sound lighthearted. I swear, you'll know everything soon. I love you all so much. Just wait a little longer. She exhaled. All right, but you better tell me soon. We love you too, Ethan. The longer you wait, the more I'll worry. I promise, I said. I love you guys more than you know. I've got to go now. Take care. Bye. I ended the call, wiped away more tears, and sat there in silence. I wanted to trust Rebecca, but I couldn't. Not yet. Not until Lauren was officially served, or until I could talk to Rebecca face to face. Ryan walked in and handed me a beer. Here you go. Let's head back to the tent and unwind. We spent the next couple of hours sipping our beers in silence, lost in our own thoughts. I told him about my conversation with Rebecca, and he raised an eyebrow. She's onto something. Yeah, I admitted. Either she's worried about a mission, or she thinks I'm coming home. Or she's piecing things together, Ryan said. Either way, we can't risk her tipping Lauren off. I nodded, taking a slow sip of my beer. No matter what, we keep this quiet. I need more time. Ryan clinked his bottle against mine. Then we buy time. Ryan and I made our way to the chow hall, where we met up with Hannah and Emily. Dinner was easygoing, some light conversation, a few jokes, nothing too heavy. After eating, we said our goodbyes, with the women heading off for their midnight to 8 a.m. shift while Ryan and I made our way to headquarters. At the JAG office, I greeted the receptionist. Good evening, Sergeant Price. We have a 0030 appointment with Colonel Monroe. She gave us a polite smile. He's expecting you. One moment, please. A few minutes later, she returned. The Colonel is ready for you now. Follow me. Ryan and I stepped into his office and took the 2 chairs in front of his desk. The Colonel was on a call but looked about finished. We sat quietly until he hung up and turned to us with a welcoming smile. Sergeants Carter and Delgado, good to see you again, he said warmly. I've got good news, even better news, and fantastic news. Let's start with the good news. He leaned forward. Your lawyer in Florida, Walter Nolan, has agreed to take on your divorce case pro bono. He specializes in civil law, while Vincent Harper focuses on criminal cases. So, you're in excellent hands. From the evidence gathered, Lauren's infidelity is undeniable. This should be an uncontested divorce. Since you're deployed, that carries weight with the court, making things even smoother. That was a relief, at least. Now for the even better news, the Colonel continued. Your company isn't directly tied to the divorce. While Lauren might try to claim a share of it, her position is weak. She's not listed as an officer, and the divorce stems from her actions. Florida isn't a community property state, so she's limited in what she can go after. At most, the judge might grant her a monetary settlement for any contribution she made as an employee, but that's about it. The Colonel's tone was reassuring, but I needed clarification. Sir, both Lauren and I draw salaries from the company, and all profits go into a trust fund for Jacob's college education. A portion is set aside for maintenance, but the rest is untouchable. Why do you ask? The Colonel's face lit up with approval. That's brilliant. Either you're a financial genius, or you have a damn good advisor. Because the assets are structured this way, they belong to Jacob, not Lauren. That trust is untouchable. Who oversees it? Jacob's godfather, Mark Sullivan, Ryan answered. If something happens to Ethan, Mark takes over the company, custody of Jacob, and the estate. The Colonel nodded, impressed. Well done. And Lauren probably doesn't even remember the trust terms, does she? Doubtful, I said. We can make deposits, but no one can withdraw funds until Jacob turns 18. The Colonel grinned. Your father was a genius for setting this up. The trust is ironclad. Only the executor or a parent can access funds, and even then, only for Jacob's education. I hesitated. Actually, the trust is for all children born to Ethan and Lauren Carter. Ryan frowned. Wait, does that mean if Lauren had a kid with someone else, they wouldn't be included? Correct, I replied, the realization hitting me like a brick. As long as I can prove the child isn't mine through DNA testing. A chilling thought crept in. Oh God, what if Jacob isn't mine? My breath caught, and my stomach twisted. The words came out before I could stop them. I can't even. My voice broke as I felt the weight of uncertainty crushing me. The Colonel moved fast, grabbing his phone. Walter, it's Patrick Monroe. Is there any way we can get a DNA test for Jacob? Saliva? Good. Check with the hospital where he was born. Some places routinely collect that info now. Also, do you have the trust documents? Great. Review them thoroughly. From what I'm hearing, this setup looks rock solid. By the way, the company's profits go directly into the trust. Smart? Huh? Okay. Keep me updated. He hung up and turned back to me. Ethan, the more I learn about your situation, the more impressed I am. You were prepared for everything. I exhaled, feeling like I had just been punched in the gut. Now for the fantastic news, the Colonel continued. You two are heading out on a mission tomorrow night. It should only last 3 or 4 days, and after that, you'll get 15 days of leave. If you want, I can arrange for Ryan to take leave with you. You two work well together. I looked at Ryan. As much as I'd love for you to come with me, I don't think it's fair to you. Mark will be there to help, and I don't want you to waste your time dealing with my mess. Ryan gave a small grin. I actually want to stay. I met someone yesterday, Emily. We hit it off, and I don't want to lose the chance to see where it leads. I smirked. Ryan, I'd never want to ruin your shot at something real with Emily. Stay here, and I hope you have good news to share when I get back. The colonel cleared his throat. Before I forget, I need you both to sign this fax. Ethan, sign where indicated. Ryan, you'll sign as a witness. I'll send this to Walter so he can start the process of serving Lauren. I hesitated, then held up a hand. Actually, can we hold off on serving her until I get home? I'd really like to hand her the papers myself, maybe 15 minutes after I walk through the door. Ryan burst out laughing. That's cold, Ethan. But I'd pay good money to see her face when she reads those papers. Even Colonel Monroe smirked. I have to admit, it's cold, but I like it. If you somehow get a picture of her reaction, I'd love to see it. That'd be some top-tier payback. I grinned. Marked worry, Colonel. I'll make sure you get that photo. Hell, I might even enlarge it and hang it in the living room. The colonel raised an eyebrow. Do you really think that's the best idea? How do you think Jacob would feel seeing something like that? I exhaled, my smirk fading. You're right, sir. It would remind me that trust isn't something to be handed out lightly. He nodded. That's fair. But don't let anger be your only reminder. Holding on to that kind of thing can take a toll. I understood what he meant, even if I wasn't ready to hear it. I had spent so much energy suppressing my rage that I wasn't sure what would happen when I finally let it out. He checked his watch. Now, you two need to get some rest. Something tells me this next mission won't allow for much downtime. Major Kelly made it clear that you're the best pair for the job, and I don't doubt him. Ryan and I stood, shaking the colonel's hand. Thank you, sir, for everything, I said. I don't know if I deserve this kind of support, but I'm grateful. Jacob would be too, if he understood. That goes for me too, Ryan added. Ethan's like a brother to me. What he feels, I feel. We've got each other's backs, no matter what. The colonel leaned back, watching us with a thoughtful expression. You two have a rare bond. I wonder what will happen when your careers eventually take you in different directions. We've talked about it, Ryan said with a shrug. We're friends for life, no matter where we end up. Maybe one day we'll settle down in the same area, or maybe not. My dad has friends all over the world. They stay in touch regularly. He says it keeps him grounded. The colonel smiled. Your dad sounds like a wise man. I might take that advice myself. It's easy to let friendships slip away when you're constantly moving. He straightened. Now go get some rest. I'll handle things here, and Walter will keep everything moving back home. Focus on your mission and come back safe. As we stepped out of the office, I turned to Sergeant Price. We're heading out for a few days on assignment, but when we get back, I know Ryan will want to see Emily. As for me, well, I'd like to spend some time with you. Nothing serious, just to get to know you better. She smiled. I like that. I'm not tied down right now, and maybe it's time I give a flyboy a chance. Ryan grinned. Oh, so you're done with ground pounders and jarheads? Hannah laughed, shaking her head. I wouldn't go that far, but I do have a soft spot for a certain flyboy I recently met. Ryan smirked. Fair enough. But Ethan, I think we just set ourselves up for something we weren't ready for. This might be the time to stop running or run faster. I chuckled. You're not wrong, brother. But right now, all I can think about is getting some damn sleep. The mission came fast. Ryan and I stepped off the helicopter 5 days later, feeling oddly at ease. We had taken out 8 confirmed targets, possibly 4 more. The objective had been a hidden cave in the mountains near Dara, a crucial supply depot for insurgents. Using infrared, we tracked a convoy of 5 trucks and about a dozen men moving through the valley toward the site. By daylight, we spotted a minor shift in the landscape, a tarp, disguised as part of the rock face. We waited for nightfall. By morning, 12 insurgents were confirmed neutralized. The Marines uncovered a massive stockpile of weapons, food, and supplies inside. It was a key hub for their operations. Once intelligence was secured, the cave was demolished. Mission complete. But something about this one felt different. As we walked back to our tent, Ryan muttered, Weird, right? What? That we don't feel worse. I nodded slowly. Yeah, maybe we've just done this too many times. Back at base, I scheduled a meeting with Colonel Monroe. When I walked into his office, he handed me a folder with my flight orders and detailed instructions. When you land stateside, contact Major Brandon Wallace at this number, he said, sliding me a note. He'll handle your transfer to Patrick Air Force Base. Your flight takes you to Atlanta first, then Fort Stewart for the final leg. Once you arrive at Patrick, call Walter Grunblatt. He's arranged for the process server to deliver the divorce papers about 15 minutes after you get home. I nodded, my mind already picturing that moment. Do you think I should call Lauren when I land in Atlanta, or just let her be surprised? The colonel shrugged. That's entirely up to you. Your parents are already in Florida with your in-laws, and they've taken Jacob with them. He'll be there until Wednesday. I clenched my jaw, staring at my flight itinerary. Then I guess she's in for a real surprise. You're scheduled to arrive Monday afternoon, so you should be home by 1400 hours. Do whatever feels right, Colonel Monroe said, his tone calm but firm. Thanks for everything, sir, I replied, a small smirk tugging at the corner of my mouth. And don't worry, I'll make sure to capture her reaction when she gets served. My phone's camera should do the trick. The colonel chuckled. Good luck, Ethan. Go pack your gear and get ready for your flight. I hope things work out the way you want them to. Thank you, sir, I said sincerely as I stood. I'll be back soon. Jacob is in good hands, and Walter already has all the paperwork finalized. Colonel Monroe gave a small nod. That's why we're here, to support those who serve. I left his office, heading back to the tent, where I found Ryan waiting. He had already packed my gear, folded my socks and underwear, neatly stacked my extra uniforms, and set aside my boots and toiletries. He even made sure everything fit perfectly in my duffel. You didn't have to do all this, man, I said, shaking my head. Ryan shrugged. Figured you had enough on your mind. Besides, you'd just throw everything in there like a caveman anyway. I let out a dry chuckle. Fair enough. We exchanged a quick hug, firm, brief, unspoken words passing between us. Then I grabbed my duffel and stepped outside, where the rumble of a Hummer's engine greeted me. A young Army private stood waiting, holding the door open. Tossing my bag in the back, I climbed in. From that moment, everything blurred together, security checks, briefings, waiting on flights. By the time I landed in Atlanta, it was 0600. I was quickly escorted to an Army helicopter waiting to take me to Fort Stewart. Once there, I had an hour to kill before boarding AC-130 bound for Patrick Air Force Base in Florida. That's when I made the call. Lauren answered on the second ring. Hello. Hi, Lauren, I said, keeping my voice neutral. I'm stateside. Actually, I'm in Georgia right now. I managed to get a flight home and should be there this afternoon. I'll call once I land at Patrick. Someone's already lined up to drive me to the house. She gasped, her voice bursting with excitement. Ethan, you're coming home today? That's incredible. How did you manage that? Why now? Just worked out that way, I said evenly. Wow, just wow. This afternoon? Do you know what time? I need to get everything ready. I didn't miss the slight panic in her voice. Trying to clean up the evidence, Lauren? Yeah, this afternoon, I confirmed. Your parents are staying at the house with mine, right? And Jacob's with them. She hesitated for just a fraction of a second. Yes. Yes, of course. Wait, did you plan all this just to surprise me? No, Lauren, I said, my tone flat. The only surprise is my visit. The rest just happened this way. I'll see you soon. Her voice softened. Oh, Ethan, I can't wait to see you and hold you again. I love you so much. Bye, Lauren. I hung up before she could say another word. My grip tightened on my phone as frustration simmered beneath the surface. I forced myself to take deep breaths, the same kind I used when lining up a shot. Slowly, I pushed the anger aside and focused. Next, I called Walter to confirm the details. He assured me everything was ready. Once I landed at Patrick, a courier would be waiting to pick me up and drive me home. When the plane touched down, I stepped onto the tarmac, exhausted but determined. A civilian van labeled Melbourne Courier Service was parked nearby, and leaning against it was a young man in his mid-20s. He had dark curly hair, a confident stance, and a sidearm holstered at his hip, more like an off-duty cop than a courier. Technical Sergeant Carter, he called as I approached. That's me, I replied. You my ride? Yes, Sergeant, he confirmed. I'm here to take you home. And I've also got something for your wife. That delivery will happen exactly 15 minutes after you step inside the house. You're a little early, though. I wasn't expecting you for another half hour. I told Lauren I'd be home around 1400, I said, climbing into the van. Let's not waste time. I just want to get this over with. Understood, he said, starting the engine. 15 minutes later, the van pulled up to my house. As I stepped out, duffel in hand, Lauren burst through the front door, screaming my name. Her performance was nauseating. She ran toward me, arms wide, tears streaming down her face like she had been waiting for this moment. I let her throw herself at me, let her press her lips against mine, let her sob into my uniform. I played along, because the real show was just about to begin. Inside, I kept up the act of the weary traveler. Honey, I'm parched. Military flights don't come with flight attendants or snacks. I don't even remember the last time I ate. Mind if we hold off on catching up until I get some food? Of course, baby, she said eagerly. I'll warm up some casserole and grab you a soda. I'm so glad you're home. I settled into the recliner in the living room, not the kitchen table. That table, like the bed upstairs, was tainted. I wouldn't sit there, and soon, neither of them would even exist in my house. From the kitchen, Lauren chattered nonstop as she prepared my food. She brought me a soda first, perching on my lap, smothering me in kisses until the microwave beeped. She darted off, returning moments later with a steaming plate of tuna casserole. I had barely set the plate on the side table when the doorbell rang. Must be for me, I said, standing up. I'm expecting some paperwork about when I need to report back. I'll get it. Lauren, too busy fussing over the food, hadn't even noticed the courier van parked outside. When I opened the door, the young man handed me a large manila envelope, his face blank, his movements precise. Is there a Mrs. Lauren Carter here? That would be my wife, I said, glancing over my shoulder. Lauren, this guy's here for you. Were you expecting something? She walked over, her expression puzzled. No, I don't think so. I'm Lauren Carter. What's this about? This is for you, the courier said, handing her the envelope. You've been served. Without another word, he turned and walked briskly back to the van. Lauren frowned, looking down at the envelope like it was a foreign object. What is this? She muttered, ripping it open. Her eyes scanned the header, and the color drained from her face. Her body swayed as if the ground beneath her had just collapsed. That was the moment. I pulled out my phone and snapped the photo I had been waiting for. She barely had time to process what was happening before her knees buckled and she collapsed. I caught her before she hit the ground. But this time, I wasn't saving her. I was simply making sure she saw the consequences of her actions before she had the chance to run from them. I calmly returned to my casserole, chewing methodically as the reality of the moment sank in. A few minutes later, I heard Lauren stir, her breathing uneven as she sat up. When I glanced over, her face was contorted with rage. I picked up my phone and snapped another picture. What? I asked, my voice cold. You thought I wouldn't find out? That I'd just let you cheat and get away with it? Ethan, it's not what you think, she stammered, her face streaked with tears. It was only once. I was lonely. I didn't mean to hurt you. I love you. I let out a bitter laugh. Not what I think. Lauren, it wasn't once. It was dozens of times. And let's not forget the captain you've been seeing for over a year. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? She broke into sobs, shaking uncontrollably. Now pack your bags and get out, I said, my voice devoid of sympathy. You're not staying here. Her hands trembled as she clutched the divorce papers. Ethan, please. I have nowhere to go. Not my problem. Her face crumpled as the finality of it hit her. Oh, and before you leave, do you even know if Jacob is mine? I asked, my voice dangerously calm. Or do I need a DNA test? She flinched, curling up on the couch. That hesitation spoke louder than words. I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed my truck keys and walked out. At the end of the street, my emotions finally caught up with me. I gripped the steering wheel, trying to steady my breathing, but the weight of it all crashed down. I had held it together for so long, but now, alone in my truck, the tears came. 10 minutes later, headlights appeared in my rearview mirror. I wiped my face and focused. Tyler. His car turned into my driveway. My jaw clenched. Rage surged through me. Without thinking, I threw the truck into gear and drove straight back. Inside, I found him sitting beside Lauren, awkwardly patting her shoulder. Tyler, I said, my voice ice cold. Get out of my house before I throw you out. He raised his hands. Whoa, man, I'm just here to comfort her. I laughed darkly. Comfort her? You think you're special? She's been with more men than I can count. Some right here in this house. Did she tell you that? Or did she make you believe you were the only one? His face fell. His gaze darted to Lauren, searching for denial. But she wouldn't meet his eyes. Realization hit him hard. Without another word, he stood and walked out. As the door shut behind him, Lauren looked up at me, her eyes pleading. Ethan, that was cruel. Why are you being so heartless? We can fix this, right? I exhaled slowly, gripping the back of a chair. Our marriage ended the moment you slept with someone else. So tell me, how long has this been going on? I know about Lieutenant Gregory. That was over a year ago. Does it go further back? Her lips parted, hesitation flickering in her expression. Yes. He was the first. I clenched my jaw. And then, when you didn't find out. I thought I could keep getting away with it. Her voice was barely audible. I scheduled the house cleanings around it. It just happened. Was I not enough for you? Her breath hitched. No, Ethan. You were everything. The best husband, the best father. I don't know why I did it. Tears streamed down her face. The first time. Adam told me I was beautiful. Irresistible. I fell for it. We slept together the first day we met. I turned away, inhaling sharply. I hated myself afterward, she continued, her voice cracking. I didn't see him again for months. But then he called. And I caved. After that, it got easier. You didn't seem to notice, so I kept going. It became an obsession. I shook my head, disgusted. I'm so sorry, Ethan. Mark apologized to me, I snapped. Save it for your parents. I'm going to see Jacob. You'll stay far away from him. She nodded weakly. I understand. I pulled out the divorce papers. Signed them. She hesitated, but after scanning the documents, she didn't argue. She knew she had no fight left. After signing the last page, she placed them back in the envelope and disappeared into the bedroom. I sat in silence, staring at the plate of tuna casserole she had left on the table. My soda sat untouched beside it. I couldn't bring myself to eat or drink. Minutes later, Lauren returned, car keys in hand. She quietly made several trips, carrying her belongings to the car. On her last trip inside, she knelt in front of me. Ethan, she whispered, I've hurt you more than I ever thought possible. I'll never forgive myself for what I've done to our family. I love you. I always have, but I don't deserve you. She hesitated. Please, just tell Jacob I'm sorry. Maybe it's better if he thinks I'm gone for good. She swallowed hard. I won't contest the divorce, and I don't want anything more from you. What you've offered is more than fair. If you find anything of mine, call Melissa or throw it out. I won't bother you again. Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. Goodbye, Ethan. She leaned forward, hugged me, and kissed my forehead before standing and walking out the door. I didn't move. I just sat there, listening to the sound of her car engine fading into the distance. She was gone. The next morning, I finally stirred. I went to the bathroom, then sat in the living room and made my calls. First, I contacted the courier service to pick up the signed divorce papers. Then, I called Rebecca at the Brooks home to explain everything. She was upset that I hadn't confided in her sooner, but said she understood. She expected Lauren to reach out soon. After that, I called my parents. Hey, do you think you and Dad could take Jacob to Disney for a few days? Mom's voice brightened. We'd love that. Daniel and Rebecca said they'd join us later in the week. Jacob will have a blast. I exhaled, relieved. It would give Lauren time to talk to her parents and figure out whatever story she planned to tell. Her side of things. What could she possibly say to justify a year of betrayal? I shook my head and moved on to the next task. I updated Walter, letting him know the papers were signed and on their way. I also asked him to prepare custody documents granting the Brooks temporary guardianship of Jacob while I was deployed. Since I no longer needed base housing, I arranged for my cleaning service to pack my belongings and store them. The military wouldn't let the house sit empty for long. Going through Lauren's laptop, I found damning photos attached to her emails. I transferred them to a flash drive to give Walter when the courier arrived. The rest of the laptop was just business files, so I called Melissa, letting her know she could pick it up whenever. She claimed she had no idea what Lauren had been doing and even offered to let her stay at her place for a few days. Next, I called Jessica Sullivan to see if she and Samantha Bennett could help keep the business running. Jessica answered right away, her voice filled with sympathy. Ethan, I had no idea until Mark told me last week, she said. I always thought you and Lauren were solid. You really never know what's happening behind closed doors. Mark and I are here for you, whatever you need. Thanks, Jessica, I replied, relieved to have her support. It's been a lot to take in. Lauren didn't even try to deny it. At first, she admitted to just one affair, but the truth goes way deeper than that. And then, of all people, Tyler's mother showed up to comfort her. He thought he was the only one. Let's just say he left pretty fast after finding out otherwise. Jessica sighed. What about Jacob? Do you have a plan for him? For now, he's with his grandparents, I explained. I'll be gone another year, so they'll have temporary custody until I'm back. As for Lauren, I've made it clear she won't be involved. Jacob doesn't need to grow up around that kind of instability. I'll tell him something simple for now. Maybe that she had to go away. When he's older, I'll figure out how to explain the full truth. Jessica's voice softened. Ethan, why don't you come over for dinner tonight? Bring your desktop and any business paperwork you have. Samantha and I will help you sort it all out. And honestly, you shouldn't stay in that house. It's full of memories you don't need right now. Stay here tonight. You don't have to go through this alone. She was right. The house felt suffocating, filled with ghosts of the past. All right, I'll come by, I agreed. And if you and Samantha want to take a look at the fridge and pantry while I'm gone, take whatever you want. I'll get rid of the rest. I'm also looking into a spot in the Bachelor Airman's quarters until I figure things out. You and Mark have been lifesavers. That's what friends are for, she said warmly. And no more thank yous, all right? Just let us help. Oh, and bring some beer if you have any. Mark's been having a rough week too. He wasn't sure whether to tell you right away after walking in on Lauren, but I told him you needed to know. I get it, Jessica. I'll explain everything tonight. Ryan's been a rock through all this too. He, Mark, and I are like brothers. It's been a team effort to keep me standing. Good, she said with a smile in her voice. See you tonight. Promise. Yes, Mom, I teased, chuckling. Jessica always had a way of making things feel lighter, even in moments like this. That night, I brought everything over to Jessica's. Between her and Samantha, they took control of the business while I focused on getting my life back together. Jacob stayed with his grandparents for the next year while I finished my deployment. When I returned, I had started dating Hannah, who had decided that maybe flyboys weren't so bad after all. Her enlistment is ending soon, and she plans to move back here after her time at Fort Hood. Jacob adores her. He took to her right away, and sometimes, when he's tired or cranky, he'll say, I miss Mommy, but she was bad and had to leave. He's only 4, but he's sharp. Rebecca enrolled him in pre-K, and he's already reading, writing in print and cursive, and counting to 100. She jokes he'll outsmart me soon, and honestly, I wouldn't doubt it. Everyone, Daniel, Rebecca, my parents, Mark, Jessica, Ryan, Colonel Monroe, and especially Hannah, helped me heal. Walter made the legal process seamless, handling everything from the divorce to custody paperwork. Lauren showed up at the hearing with her lawyer. She's now living in Orlando and has a steady job. Her mom gave her an earful when she first came back, but their relationship is improving. Therapy was part of the divorce agreement, and from what I hear, she has no interest in dating. She's finally accepting the consequences of what she did. As for me, I'm moving forward. Hannah and I are engaged, planning to marry once she's out of the military. Jacob has been my biggest source of strength, often climbing into my lap just to hug me and say, "It'll get better, Daddy." And he's right. It already is. I'm still working as an avionics technician with the launch group and set to get new stripes this fall. Rumors are swirling about transfers to Barksdale or Dias, but wherever I go, my family will come with me. Ryan has returned to McGuire, and Emily has a few months left on her rotation. There's talk of her coming home early, but nothing's confirmed. She plans to leave the military when her enlistment ends next year. Funny enough, Ryan and I both proposed to Hannah and Emily on the same night. Life may have thrown some hard punches, but we're both still standing, ready for whatever comes next.